Hello, students. We're going to start this week off talking about economic, legal, and ethical issues. Just to give you a little bit of background here, Social Security was originally set up as an age entitlement program back from 1935. They calculated the benefit based on the person's age, salary during 35 of his or her working years. And eligibility age has been increasing slowly, and it will eventually transition to age 67 for those born in 1960 or after. It used to be 65. It's still 62. You can get it early, but now it is 60. Going to be 67 for those 1960 or after. I would not be surprised if they continue to up that with the baby boomers getting older. Social Security, they have what they call supplemental Social Security income, which came about in 65. And this is going to provide a minimum level of support to people regardless of how much they earn in early life or when capable of working. And so this is going to basically provide support, supplemental income to people that have a low Social Security benefit. In 2010, the maximum for a single person was $674 and $1011 for a couple. So as you can see, that would be very, very difficult to live on. I don't know what it is today. I mean, it has gone up, but that's what it was in 2010. You can have other income in late life. You can have private retirement or pension plans. A lot of places have done away with pension plans with Social Security. You can invest privately, when you talk about 401ks, your stocks and bonds, and so forth. And remember, not all retirement plans include survivor benefits. So this can be really important if you have a woman particularly that never worked and, her and her husband are retired and something happens to him, there needs to be a plan in place because not all pension has survivor benefits. Now, the federal government, they pay, the insurance is paid mostly through Medicare. They also have railroad Medicare for people that worked on the railroad, Medicaid, which is income-based, and TRICARE, which you're going to see with the military, and Veterans Administration, the VA. And most elders, they're going to fall under Medicare, Medicaid, or both. And when we say both, we consider those dual eligible. They had Medicare because of age and they worked enough quarters, and Medicaid because of their income. Medicare history, I just find this interesting. In 1934, President Roosevelt appointed a committee to write the Social Security bill. This is always fascinating to me. The actual original bill included a health insurance plan, kind of like the Affordable Care Act today. But he deferred it because he was going to lose the Social Security bill because there was so much opposition to it. And the American Medical Association was the one that opposed it the most, calling it socialized medicine. He also recognized the growing number of vulnerable populations like the elders, children, the disabled, and these vulnerable populations didn't have access to health care services. So in 65 and 66, they expanded the Social Security system, and that's when they established Medicare, Railroad Medicare, and Medicaid. Medicare Part A, a person automatically receives coverage when he turns 65 and has paid Medicare taxes for at least 30 quarters or 10 years. And this also includes the blind and totally disabled and those with end-stage renal disease. Hospital insurance plan, it covers acute hospitalizations, acute and short-term rehab, and some costs under hospice and home health care, but this is only under certain circumstances. Part B, in about 7 months before a person's 65th birthday, if you have Medicare Part A, if you're eligible for Medicare Part A, you must select and apply for Part B through your local Social Security Administration office. It covers things like your physician physician visits, nurse practitioner visits, outpatient services like lab, home health, which is going to all your rehabs, physical, speech, and occupational therapy, and again, home health. And if the place you go, the elder goes, doesn't take Medicare, they can charge up to a 15% above the allowable charge through Medicare. So there are a lot of practices now that aren't accepting what Medicare pays. You can go there and they can do a 15% upcharge. Part C is the Medicare Advantage plans. These are your HMOs, Humana Gold, different ones you're seeing out there. I think there's an Aetna, there's all kinds of different ones. They include Medicare A and B. The premiums are going to vary. They focus on comprehensive and preventative care, and it's a capitated system. The provider gets a certain set amount for each patient or enrollee, regardless of whether they come to the office or not. So if a patient comes none or 50 times, they're getting the same amount. And of course, you're going to get into a lot of, you have to have a referral and prior auth with these kinds of plans. Medicare Part D, this came about in 2003. The baby boomers really pushed for this, which is a prescription drug program. You can opt in or opt out every year, and I don't have it in front of me, but if you don't opt in when you're eligible, each year you wait, you're penalized about 10%. So that means that they pay 10% less of what they normally would have. Medigap insurance policies. A lot of times you'll see people that buy supplemental insurance plans because of the high copays with Medicare, and these plans will kick in and pay the copays that Medicare doesn't pay. But these are also going to be approved amounts with contracted providers. Care for veterans, the VA system, they really hold leadership in geriatric research, medical care, and extended care, and the person and their dependents who have been part of uniformed services may be eligible for health care through the VA hospital network. TRICARE, this is for the Department of Defense for eligible beneficiaries. Still requires enrollment in Medicare Part A and B and pay premiums for Part B. Medicaid, again, this is jointly funded by the federal and state government. Tax dollars are collected for this. This provides health services to the low income, pregnant women, permanently disabled, and persons age 65 and older. Majority of funds are used actually to provide long-term nursing care for older and disabled adults. Medicaid, not Medicare, but Medicaid will pay for nursing home care. The beds are limited in nursing homes. Usually you have to get on a waiting list, but they will cover that. Long-term care insurances, these came about. They're just all kinds of policies. These will help pay for long-term care costs. You just really need to read these policies carefully about what is covered. If you're interested in long-term care, it's best if you buy it when you're really young because it's a lot cheaper than when you get older. But just read the fine print on what will be covered. Ethical principles, just this is a quick review. Autonomy, you have to respect a person's right to self-determine. And you have to support the independent decision making. Doesn't mean you agree with it, but an older person still has autonomy. Beneficence, giving compassion, desire to do good. It's a core principle of our patient advocacy. Non-malfeasance, we want to avoid harm or hurt. And the core of the medical oath and nursing ethics. Often in modern times, non-malfeasance extends to making sure you're doing no harm in the benefit act of using technology to extend life or in using experimental treatments that have not been well tested. So you're kind of in one of those catch-22 where, you don't want to do harm or hurt, but by advances in technology or some of the things we're doing, like putting feeding tubes in people that have had a catastrophic CVA and are really vegetative, are we really causing harm or preventing harm. Just it's one of those ethical things to think about. Could be huge debates on it. Fidelity, be fair, truthful, loyal, advocate for your patients, always advocate your patients, make promises and keep them. And this is based on the virtue of caring. Justice, we want an equal and fair distribution of resources, get rid of those disparities. And it implies that everyone has equal rights to the goods distributed, whether they've contributed or not. Contributed to can be having the fire department, water, food services, social services, all kinds of things wrap up in that. Legal and ethical issues, decision making. Again, there's that ethical principle of autonomy. It's important for older people as well as everyone else to have informed consent before any procedures or treatments. And competence is a legal term, and it indicates that individual has decision-making capacity. And capacity is a functional term indicating whether they can understand at that level for the needed decision at hand. So they're a little bit different there. Powers of attorney, they act on behalf of the person if they're not able to act for themselves. These are not for decisions related to health care. You actually have to have a health care power of attorney. They can be the same, but they are different, where the health care power of attorney can make health care decisions if the patient is unable. And one thing really important when I tell my older folks, when you're picking out someone to do this, make sure that you've discussed your wishes and they're on board with them, because, they are going to be making your wishes for you. And while a older person is able to make their own decisions, it's important for them to take out a healthcare power of attorney while they're able, because if they don't, and their 5 children, that's going to might be a little bit of arguing going on there. And also it's expensive to go to court and be appointed the power of attorney. It can be guardians. You see this a lot where the courts have appointed someone to take care of the disabled person, finances, personal health care, and financial affairs, to manage those. And this is where the court declares the elder to be incapacitated in all legal rights or law. So only the court can determine capacity. Conservator controls the finances of the ward, not healthcare, just finances. And the guardian is responsible for the person. Elder mistreatment. Of course, this is complex. It includes elder abuse, exploitation, and neglect. It's in all socioeconomic, racial, and ethnic groups. Can be intentional, accidental, episodic, or recurrent. We also have the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act that mandates an analysis of the problem, and the Vulnerable Elder Rights Act. Elder abuse is reportable by law, so that is reportable, just like child abuse. The Family Violence Prevention and Services Act, it mandates an analysis of the problem under the Vulnerable Elder Rights Act. And the Rights Act, it addresses the need for advocacy to protect and enhance the basic rights and benefits of vulnerable older people. So there are mandates that states what they carry out, and they can vary. Elder justice, financial literacy, elder shelters, and elder justice activities. Abuse, it's going to occur in the home setting where the majority of caregiving occurs. This is where most occurs. 86.6% of the time, a family member is the abuser. Physical abuse, anything that results in bodily injury, pain, or impairment. Any unexpected injury, bruise, or change in behavior just needs to be investigated further. Inappropriate use of chemical and physical restraints, force feeding, physical punishment, or any kind of physical abuse. Psychological, emotional abuse. It could be verbal assaults, threats, intimidation, harassment, anguish, pain, or distress through verbal or nonverbal acts, and treating an older person like a child, isolating them, keeping them from family or friends are an example of psychological abuse. Financial or material exploitation, improper use, using their money, property, identity, can be by force or by deceit, fraud, and it can be often very difficult to detect because usually this is a family member. Undue influence, going to have the person fear you, have that power. Neglect. Now, physical neglect is actually the most common elder mistreatment is neglect. Malnutrition, dehydration, they're not getting medical conditions treated, they're not, patient is not getting bathed. This is the most common one that you see. Caregiver neglect. This is an act of omission or withholding of needed goods. Like if they need food and say, oh, well, you haven't been good today, so I'm not going to give you food. That is neglect. And when you're ignoring the obvious needs when the caregiver is present. And there's some handouts. Here's a handout here. It's about, I'll let you go through them. This is a really, really good PowerPoint on mandated reporters to look through. And you have here is a really good brochure on who is a mandated reporter. Abuse hurts at any age. Very good. Gives you some common signs of adult abuse, neglect, and exploitation. So you can read through that. And this one, let's see. It's about APS. It's called Facing the Facts, Older Adults and Family Violence, and this talks about Virginia. So it talks about facts and understanding abuse, and it's really, really interesting to read. Warning signs. So there's a lot of cool stuff in there. And this is just another Abuse Hurts at Any Age, another brochure, but different, that has a lot of good information. Risk factors for elder abuse: if the caregiver is abusing alcohol or drugs, has any emotional or mental illness, the history of abusing or being abused, they get exhausted and frustrated. That's why we need to make sure we support our caregivers. And they don't have any other social support. Maybe they're the only child and no one else to help them. No money to do it. Elderly recipient of abuse is increased risk of female. If they're overly demanding or unappreciative, the more dependent they are on assistance, the higher the risk of abuse. They've abused the caregiver in the past, so the caregiver, I guess, is abusing them. They have a history of dementia or depression or other behavioral problems. Self-neglect is it can be diminished physical or mental capacity. And then there are times when the mentally competent person, they make a conscious and voluntary decision to do things that threaten their health or safety as a matter of personal choice. So the ethical and legal question, to what extent healthcare professionals can intervene unless a person lacks capacity or competence. So if they don't want to take a bath and they have capacity and they're competent, there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. Promoting healthy aging, caring for the vulnerable elders can involve difficult and problematic legal and ethical issues. You need to always be aware for potential abuse and protect the patient from neglect or exploitation, and involve adult protect services when indicated. Because remember, you are a mandatory reporter. You also remember what they can do is very limited. You can send someone out and call APS, and if they go out there and the patient is competent with capacity, even though it's not the great living situation, or either I've had cases where the patient reported to me that the caregiver was being verbally abusive. So I called APS. When APS came out, she denied it. And then, of course, they wanted to get another provider because they realize I was the one that had called. So, it's really interesting. They will tell you one thing and then you'll call. This is not always, but, it can happen. But you are a mandated reporter. Um, just went talked about that, huh? You're required to report if you have a reasonable belief that the person is likely being abused, neglected, or exploited. Prevention, caregiver support. See what we can do to lessen that caregiver stress. Let's give them respite care. If someone come in and fill in a while, have them go do something relaxing and fun. Make sure that the elder knows how to get help if they need it, and provide encouragement and support to leave a potentially abusive situation. And again, this is just a question. The most prevalent type of neglect is, and the answer is B, not attending to needs. That's the most prevalent type. You guys have a great week, and I have a discussion board post up, and I look forward to hearing your responses.